You did. Yeah.
Yeah, and as a result, we had a DS and a conference superintendent that recognized that, and they asked me if I'd take early retirement voluntarily to get me my full pension, and that was a winner.
Yeah.
I decided I'd better do it.
You better do it. Right.
But 3 months later, the weather didn't permit me to do anything else but to get out of there.
I see.
I came Texas way.
I see. So what brought you to Texas? What brought you
Well, I
here?
had a friend of mine that I went to college with. And we were in conference work before, but not knowing each other. But we still, I came to live with him. And as a result, I did some evangelism through him and with him and for others.
I see.
And as a result, I ended up with his church where he was pastoring for a crusade.
Right.
And that's my wife you've seen and met out there.
You're right.
And 3 months later, he married us.
I'll be darned. How about that?
It was first love, I guess. But then the other thing is, I lost my first wife in death. I've got 2 children out there by her. Got these 2 boys here as my second marriage.
Right.
But we've had a good life.
Indeed.
And,
so you grew up in Indiana, is that right?
Yes. I was raised by a father who had a stiff hand on us. I was the first son. And then there came another son, Dick, and of course Dick was in World War II, and he lost his first wife, and then when he did a thing. Way up in there, he got into the Bastogne area with Patton's tank corps, and he got blowed. Him and his sergeant got blowed out of the torrent. Their men were killed underneath, laid for days before they found them.
Wow.
I didn't know that until I got home. He got home ahead of me, but then he wasn't going to be dismissed because of his injuries. He had to go back in and stay in for another hitch. But I'll tell you, he was home a month, and I was there. I had that month with him, and as a result, Dick and I was speakers of German and French. I mean, fluently.
Yes, sir.
Because you learn those when you're in those nations. You're going to learn those languages.
Right.
Because you got to have them.
Yeah.
And
yeah, absolutely.
Partly, I don't know. Was ist los? Ich nicht verstehen. Was ist los?
What's that?
You don't understand. And do you understand? I know that much yet. And then in French, the oui means you, yes. And parlez-vous français?
Right.
That's French.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were drafted when you were about 19, is that right? In 43?
Yes, about 18 I was drafted. I was in, I had to sign in on, not on that, but I had to register.
Right.
As most of the men back then had to. And when they registered me, I got about 18, I left. And my daddy had a feeling about me. He said, son, let's take a walk. So I said, all right. So Dad and I worked close together with various projects. He had a shop. He had mechanical work. He did parts. He'd work 2 or 3 jobs, and at night somebody'd bring an automobile, junk junk pile, and he had to practically rebuild it for him. And he did this sort of thing all the time, off and on. My dad was that kind of outgoing person to others. But my daddy was a hard-shelled Baptist. My mama was a Presbyterian. How in the world a Wesleyan Arminianist ended up being a preacher, that was something else.
Right.
But mama put that thought in my mind, I think, when visitors came to the house and when visitors came to talk to my mother, there was this aspect. Mama said, "This is my preacher lad." And I was on her lap.
So she knew.
She knew. I don't know what she knew about me, but otherwise, evidently, there was some kind of a inner spiritual aspect of. Mama was pretty religious,
Right.
And so was her sister, and I can remember Aunt Myrnie coming to our house and staying, and she would see to all of the girls that were there then. Excuse me, had their baths and they get ready for bed and all of this, and then I came last,
Right.
Because I was the oldest.
Yeah.
And she sort of helped Dad and Mom a lot. But then Myrnie didn't have, she wasn't married yet. But actually a little later on she did marry, and she lost her husband in death. I remember that, Uncle Bert passing away, and
Right.
Aunt Myrnie. And then I went to see Aunt Myrnie in Anderson when I pastored Pendleton, Indiana.
I see.
And this is where some of my family rubbed on. And when I came south, before I came south, why my brother and his wife, my brother and his wife was there in Greensburg, and Betty and I went up to visit them when we was up home once, and one time, and George was a great kid, and I tell you, we shared to notes a lot, back and forth, but I've not seen him in years now.
Right.
But he has been there with the oldest boy of my first marriage.
I see.
Philip Wayne. And Philip Wayne and him, and he keeps in touch somewhat. And Phyllis Ann and Mike has been here down here to visit us.
Right.
And we had a ball.
Right.
With the two kids, and they came in here that night from over here. I went around. I found out where they were. They called me, and I bet Mom and I went out and we met them. And you ought to talk about a family reunion and a hugging and a kissing and everything else. I'm telling you.
So tell me about your ordnance repair school in Omaha. Is that right?
Yes. Yes,
so you just
ordnance in Omaha. I was sent there after I got into the Army because I had been working in my father's leadership,
Right.
As a mechanic as well. And then not only that, Dad finally pulled me in on sales because he said, "I'll take care of the other because I think I need to be overpowering over the mechanical department more than you could do." And so he put me in sales, and I learned how to sell Dodges and Plymouths and Chryslers.
I'll be darned.
and that was some of my training. But when the Army got the hold of all of this record, they wanted me to go to Omaha, Nebraska, because they wanted to send me to a mechanical school where actually I could learn about transmissions, rear end differentials, and even the aspect of brakes, some touch entrances of motor care, because I'd had that experience with Dad, and it was valuable to me. But I got into that, and then you never get to do what she was trained to do.
No.
They shifted me into being a truck driver. And I hauled parts and ammo and supplies all over the place.
Yeah.
And one time we was stationed, stopped at a overnight, and we had parked 4 or 5. I think we had 5 trucks, and they were loaded to the hilt with supplies. And we had 2 guards out there, and had trouble. Oh, we had a lot of trouble. We fought them off, but one of our guards got killed out there, and I thought it was enough.
Now this was after the invasion, right? This was
after the invasion.
After the invasion.
Yeah, and this was somewhere in Germany.
Right.
I can't say the place. I don't remember even. But the thing is, we looked up and seen that happening. I says to my drivers, "Come on, get your switches." Now we had wired those trucks and everything for such an occasion. And I says, on the word 3, switch it. You know what happened? We blowed arms and legs and parts and trucks all to pieces. We had to walk back, but we didn't get any flack from the command.
Right.
No flack at all. They praised us because we didn't let our stuff
get taken by the Germans.
Taken by Germans.
Right. You blew it up.
The Nazis. We blew them up.
You blew it up.
But that just about ended all of that.
Right.
So we came back in, and they stationed us at Wiesbaden.
Yeah.
And at Wiesbaden, I became a Jeep driver, and also somewhat I commanded the guard duties.
Right.
And I was just nothing but an old corporal.
Well, when you came back though after that incident, were you under attack, or did you run back? You walked back? Is that? We
walked back.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any trouble getting back.
Okay, that was uneventful.
Because we killed out that element there at that point.
Right.
But when we got to Wiesbaden, that place, now there still was no fraternization rule in order. You couldn't even talk to a German.
Right.
And if you did, you better be careful. Somebody might shoot you for doing it.
Sure.
And that might be the other side.
Right.
You never know.
Yeah, right.
So what happened, we came back. I took Lieutenant Smith down to his officers club. He wanted to go there. And he says, "Jack, will you take me down?" I said, "Yes, sir." So I took him down. And coming back, I met a bug, VW. And the VWs back then had nothing but no tops. And if they had a top, it would be canvas or molded or something like that could be taken off. And this was all open. And the cow part would have the windshield bit into it with the glass and then the framework of it and all attached.
Right.
And they was one part in that body.
Right.
And when they come by me, I just didn't do anything but rev my Jeep up a little bit, kick it over on its side. Germans had their curbs just right, the height that I could hit that with a certain speed and roll that Jeep over. I grabbed my submachine gun and I took those 3 guys out.
Right.
Right there.
I'll be darned.
They laid in it wasn't but just a few seconds because the MPs was behind them. I just took them out.
Right.
And what in the world would you think the officer was an MP, young major, and he said to me, "Soldier, don't say your name, don't tell your unit, don't worry about your Jeep. I'll get it back to the compound. You get in that middle Jeep, you'll be under guard."
Mm-hmm.
And the Jeep in front and the Jeep in back's got guards in it. So actually, they guarded me all the way until they got me to my compound and got me into my officer's, my first,
Mm-hmm.
and who would be on duty but old Sergeant Major First Sergeant Goddard.
Mm-hmm.
Goddard. We called him the old goat. and all the time, you know, he was something else. He was something else, I'm telling you. Now, Jackson, he says, "What in the heaven's name were you doing? What did you do to do wrong?" About that time, the young major says, "Attention." You ought to see that old goat's jumped attention. I had a friend over there, and he was grinning and smiling at all of this, but he lost his smile, and we stood at attention. And you know what he said? "Sergeant Major, I'm going to tell you something right now. I know what your man did, but your man took out 3 of the enemy, which we've been chasing for weeks. Now, I'm not going to charge him with that, and to see to it that you're not going to do it, I'm going to give you an order right now. In that orders, you are to have this man at 0400 hours in the morning headed stateside." I got to go home early.
I'll be darned.
And that's
You've done your duty.
Huh?
You had done your duty.
Yeah, that's the
Wow,
way.
what a story. What a story.
I figured
Yeah.
I could tell that pretty good because I've been thinking about it.
You did. And Thursday, I want you to tell it just like that. Let's rewind. You went over from New York on a boat, right, to England, right?
No.
From New Rochelle?
Yeah, it was New Rochelle Island.
Right.
But I had just gotten back off of a month's furlough.
I see.
I knew my unit was headed for
Europe.
overseas.
Right.
I knew that.
Right.
But I didn't. These are some things that we men never spoke to home and people and everything. But Dad said to me, he said, "Son, I want you to not say anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to say, listen up."
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I want to teach you right now. Listen up as you do your duty.
Right.
And number 2, I want you to learn to do what you're told.
Right.
And number 3, don't speak of it. Go on.
Right.
Do it.
Yeah. Right.
And those are that my dad was World War I.
Yeah.
And these are some of the things that I can remember. And my father and mother both are gone.
Right. Sure.
And my young brother next to me is gone. His wife is gone.
Right.
And I've got an older sister and her husband, but I don't know whether he's dead or not now at all, because he's got Alzheimer's.
I see.
And
I see.
And I just lost a sister, Jack. It was his wife.
Right.
And down by Greensburg, and or not Greensburg, but in Shelbyville, she died in the hospital at Shelbyville.
Right. Right.
And they were from Flat Rock.
Right.
And I got a sister and brother-in-law that was in Greensburg, in Adams, around next to Greensburg. And what that was is Roger, I think it was, died, and Sis lived by herself a lot.
I see.
And she was my baby sister.
Right. 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 So. I've seen that picture before.
Have you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fairly famous picture right here of him addressing the troops.
Now that's mine. That's me.
That's you.
Yes, sir. That's me.
Well, I've
And
seen.
and this is me.
This is you right here. Well, I've seen this. This is
Yeah.
a famous picture.
Yeah.
Or at least one very similar to it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious! And where are you here?
That's me. No, wait a minute. Let's see.
Is this at the beach?
Yeah, yeah. I was a lieutenant, and this is
Which one is you? Do you think?
I was a lieutenant, and he. You can see I was not dressed as an officer because that's. But I lost all of that somehow. And who knows and why.
So you're in this picture,
Yeah,
and you believe this is you here?
I think that's me. Yes, that's me. Because I had umpteen clothes on because it was cold on that barge.
Right. And this is this on D-Day?
Yep.
And you were
Third
wave.
the third wave.
Right.
I was leading these guys the third wave as lieutenant. I think it was a second Louis, but your command comes and rank comes and then goes, and sometimes you never know. And when I come home, I had to take a PFC. And that's normal.
This is just incredible. I'm going to put these pictures on, and this is just amazing. Wow.
This was furnished to me by an old Navy man, a friend of mine here in this city, and they're in College Station.
Right.
But I don't know where he's at now, and I haven't seen him for some time, so I don't know whether he's succumbed or not.
Where was it? Like I said, I've seen this picture. And
Well, this was
this in England?
This was in England before we embarked on the LST, taking us for
Over to
wherever
France.
we was going to be unloaded in barges. And when we got to the point, we was in the shelling. I lost these ears
Right.
in that shelling, and I've got this disability
Right.
as my disability
Right.
plus other things, but they have never touched the hip.
This was
When I went in on Omaha, I had a 44.4 bullet hit, and there's nothing been done about it. And I'm not going to worry about it. I've done talked myself to death over it, so
Yeah.
I just keep still about it normally. But I don't mind telling it.
You don't have a
And
Purple Heart?
no Purple Heart or nothing, but I'll tell you something. A few weeks ago, or a few months ago, I think sometime, the St. Luke's United Methodist Church, of which I am interrelated here. I can't be a member because of my ministry up north and being retired in Texas. They don't allow ordained ministers who come in, to become part of any of the actual happenings here. They kind of, I think, don't trust us. So as a result, what happens? We take this back seat, and that don't bother me in the least. So I'm.
This is just incredible photography.
I've
What do you remember about the invasion? About you came ashore on an LST, right? I mean, we've all seen the pictures and we've seen the.
What we did, first of all, we were in a LST, and we were standing on deck and getting ready to go down into barges. Well, my company went down in the barge for the third wave, and going down the net, a friend of mine that I had that I lost, he slipped and fell off of the net and between the boat, and it came back and crushed him to death.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew it.
Mm-hmm.
The whole company knew it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when they asked me, I said, yes, he's gone. He's in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be buried there. That's the memory.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned his name in. I didn't have his
Mm-hmm.
but I had the name, and they took care of it.
Right.
The authorities took care of it.
Right.
When we got landed.
Right.
But the thing is, I had that. I was devastated for a while because this was a close friend.
Right.
And you learn to pair off with someone.
Sure.
And you do that, and because this is just our training as troops on invasions, we have a partner that we care for and take care of, and take care of each other. This way the officers are not spread out too thin.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just what happened.
Yeah. In the third wave, what was most of the conflict, most of the
shelling was still continuing.
It was still continuing.
Yes, and the reason for that is because we had paratroopers behind.
Right. They were coming in.
They were coming in ahead of us.
Right.
And trying to prepare it, but they had to prepare it by the factor. But here's one thing. Germany had called all of its officers back to Berlin at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as a result, they were no one trained to lead them and direct them. So we had an easy. It wasn't easy because I got that bullet and I could have been killed.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, I lost my hip.
So where did you take the bullet? In your back hip?
Yeah.
Okay. But you were
there's an indentation right there.
Right.
That's all over that
Yeah.
wall. There's no socket to it.
Right. But you were able to. You weren't knocked down. You were knocked down. You were able to keep going.
Well, I was knocked out for a little bit, but the sarge looked down and seen me laying there, and he hollered. And he said, "Lieutenant, are you hit? Are you hit?" Finally, I come to it that, yes, I'm hit. Come down here in this mud hole and get me out of here. And that was my wording. And he did. He come down and picked me up like a baby.
Yeah.
And he says, "Sir, you're bleeding like a stuck hog." I said, "I know I am. I've got a bullet in it." And he said, "Oh my God." So he took me over to his Jeep, put me in it, and ordered his man to take me to that mesh unit.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and I told him, I says, you know where we're to go, Sarge. You take the troops and you go over there and you stay right there till I get there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll know when I'll get there, but I'll be there. You wait for me.
Right.
I don't want to lose this command. He says, I won't.
So you were hit after you had scaled the beach pretty much when you were...
No, I didn't stay on that beach.
No, but
after I didn't get hit until we went up.
Right.
On that third wave.
Right. So you were close to a Jeep. Fairly close to it.
Well, it was on top.
It was on top. I see.
We're already on top. So actually, somehow I don't know. Maybe the CB's got those things up in there.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I'll never know. But I know.
So did you go to the MASH unit? You went to the MASH unit and got fixed up?
Yeah, I got that, and they told me this: "Soldier, don't you let anybody operate on you on that hip.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bleeder.
Yeah.
And they'll lose you.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we're not going to do it.
Right.
And we're not equipped here in the field to.
Right.
And I said, well, that's okay. But now, sir, we're telling you, don't let anybody operate on you.
Yeah.
I says, I heard you.
Right.
So the man that sergeant left with me said, "Sir, are you ready to go?" And I said, "If you can put up with me. Yes, we're ready. So we took off.
Did they take the bullet out?
Yeah, they took just the bullet and the flap.
And just patched you up?
Just patched. It was a patch.
Mm-hmm. They stopped the...
But I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
You can look at that spot. There is no scar in that spot.
Well, you didn't have surgery. It was just
I
it was
had
a hole.
surgery.
Yeah.
I had surgery.
Right. Yeah.
But they had to do some patching.
Right.
But you don't know the doctors and surgeons that are in the field.
Yeah.
You got the best
Right.
that you could get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something. This is something I've told people after people that they couldn't hardly believe it.
Mm.
But it's the truth.
Wow. Wow.
And I don't know if any other soldier would ever give anything like this. But I tell you, I must be a strange dog because I've always been this way.
Right.
But my father said, keep your mouth shut.
Uh-huh.
Do what you're told.
Uh-huh.
And not only do what you're told, but get at it.
Yeah.
And do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Follow it through.
Right.
And
So how long was it from D-Day to when you were sent home? How long span was that about?
Let's see.
Does it say here?
Hi there.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm not just too sure I can.
No, that's okay. No, if you don't know, I mean, was it?
You know, we went through Paris after I got to my unit. We started through Paris and we marched through, and partly, but I was in a Jeep because that was powerful, of course.
Yeah.
And as a result, I guess I led that with the Jeep, and as a result, when we got through that, we went over toward Verdun.
Uh-huh.
Well, for a little while, the company was stationary there and setting up again to be able to redo vehicles and work on vehicles and to get them in shape, because we took a toll on those vehicles. Couldn't change oil, you couldn't do this, you couldn't repair anything if you didn't have the parts on already. We had parts, but they were in trucks.
Right.
And trucks sometimes got away from us.
Right.
And that was because of the size.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what we had when we had to replenish them. We would go back to depots before we moved on, always. And when we was coming back, that's when we had that. But then we didn't get any flack from command. I was surprised at that.
Right.
But I tell you, I'm not.
What unit were you in? What was
3527 company. 3527 company.
Army?
Medium automated.
Medium.
That's what medium automated. That put us on the front lines.
Right. Because you had to keep the vehicles going.
Right.
Yeah.
That was our duty.
Right.
And I drove truck in combat many times.
Right.
And had that one, as you noticed, they were loaded with parts all blowed out.
Right.
Because we had to. We couldn't let the enemy have it.
Exactly.
And I think that's what helped the ending of the battle, because when we had that.
Right. Right. So you came home before the Bulge, right? I guess.
Pardon?
Before the Battle of the Bulge, you came home.
I'm not sure, but I guess. But we weren't. We were in Wiesbaden at that time.
I see.
But we went up toward Bastogne.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's as far as we got.
Right. Right.
And then back we came toward Wiesbaden, and that's where we were replenishing again and doing a whole lot of other work.
Right. Right.
On other companies and so on and so forth.
Right.
That was our mainstay.
Yeah. So when you came home, what did you do? How long were you in the Army for when you came home?
Well, when I came home, when I came back, I was, after I said this about the what the major told the command, the sergeant,
Right.
major, I 400 hours I was on my way, and of course he came back that next morning to see if it was, but he had already said, if you don't get there, I'm going to be back here tomorrow to find out if you headed him stateside. If you haven't, your backside belongs to me. That old sergeant, that young sergeant, he was a pistol.
Yeah.
But I was glad for him.
Right. Right.
I was within me. I was gleeful.
Yes, sir.
Naturally, I was going to get to go home.
Right.
And they took me the next morning. It was dusk. We couldn't see anything. I was in the back end of a GMC. One of the fellows in the GMC.
Right.
And I'm a telling you, we had. Blankets and everything else, and bedspreads, army made, and everything to be the softest for us to be riding in there. Made a bed. We laid out, and I'm a telling you, it was rough riding. But I'll tell you something. I'll never forget it as long as I live.
Well, no. I mean, there's not that many people who survived the D-Day. I mean, and you're a person who survived D-Day. I mean,
yes, not many of us. I guess I was lucky that I got back like it happened, because
right.
I tell you it. But I have lived with all of this. But a few months ago, there was a Evangelical United Brethren a kind of meeting in a arena down here all through Texas, a United Methodist group of companies, and all coming in together in an arena thing for a 3-day Men at the Cross.
Right.
It's a bunch of men now.
Right.
Well, our company had our church had a company of 9 men, I inclusive, and I'll tell you, the music director, who was the one of the pastoral leaders, and then our pastor talked with me and said, "We're going to sure take you, Dale." I said, "All right." So I prepared to go with them, and we went down there to Houston, and I'll tell you, we had a ball. But the other side of the coin, we had speaker all the 3 days. And when the third night came, we didn't know what was going on, but we had built a cross the second day,
right,
and put it on the platform. And when we come back from the dinner hour that third day, that third night,
right,
that was in the middle of the arena, in Houston.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, this was something else. We had a great time, and when he said that speaker got through, he was praying for us, and he says, "I want you to touch the cross," and we all 6,500 or 7,000 men from all of the United Methodist Church of the state of Texas came together and touched that. We were in a circle, and I think there's pictures of that, but I'd like to get them, but I haven't done it yet.
Right.
But the other thing, I touched the back of the people in front of me. Some of my men touched my shoulders, and the other one, they touched another shoulder. As a result, what happened, I felt in the spiritual flow of God's love and God's blessing upon all of us. And I'm telling you, I felt that pain out of that right hip go.
Wow.
And it's not been there since.
I'll be darned.
Now, a lot of people say, "Preacher, you're crazy." I said, "I might be crazy, but I was there."
Right. Well, no, I don't think you're crazy. I believe you.
I'll tell you
believe you.
something. I've been able to talk about my service, and it didn't bother me in the least because I went through it.
Right. Oh, I know.
I've seen some of the roughest things that you wouldn't ever believe. Being going in on that invasion.
Mm-hmm. You saw a lot of death.
Yes.
Yes.
Bellies ripped open, heads off, arms off, legs off. Laying here and there, we stepped over.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't dare step in
Mm-hmm.
on them. They hadn't had time, that third wave, to take and clean it because they had to get a force up there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they did.
Yeah. Wow.
I
That's a great story.
I can say this. I'm a minister and all, and a Christian. But I can say this word. I don't care what war it is and you're in. It's all can be considered going through hell.
Sure.
I can say
Sure.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you've been there.
I've been there.
You've been there. It's wonderful. Do you have any other pictures?
I don't know. I gotta be careful of doing that.